Now, an explosion outside a church has left 14 people wounded following an attack by suspected suicide bombers in the Indonesian city of Makassar. Police say the two suspects detonated the device outside of the church. They are the only fatalities in the attack. Authorities are now looking into which radical groups the bombers were connected to. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has also unveiled his new look cabinet, shuffling two ministers currently on medical leave out of their existing roles. Joining me now is New South Wales Senator and retired Army Major General Jim Molan to talk about all of that. Jim, thank you for your time.
Rita, thank you. Just remember, you can never have too much toilet paper.
Well, true. There's no expiry date on toilet paper. Now, to this news in Indonesia, really is quite disturbing because this is an attack against a Catholic church in Makassar, a little bit too close to home for us. What do you know about this, and should we be worried about the climate of Islamism, I should say, not Islamophobia, in Indonesia, or should we just wait and see who's behind this attack?
Rita, I think to get it into perspective, you've got to look back a bit, and I had an extraordinary experience over 5 years where I was a military diplomat in Indonesia during the fall of Suharto, during East Timor and democratisation. And when we lived there, in one of the years we were there, 70 churches were burned or bombed across Indonesia. And in those days, the main function of the police and the army was to control more extreme Islamic groups. From the time of Indonesian independence, that's what the army has done. After democratisation, the police have been pushed to the fore, and the army is more like a military we know. But we took away from them their extraordinary ability to act extrajudicially, to get out there and kill people in the streets because of more transparency and democratisation. And that's made it, that compared to the population, the military and police are very small. What we saw the other day is a reminder of Australians who've been through the Bali bombings, of us who saw the hotel bombings in Jakarta a few years later. A few years ago, we've had a gun attack and a bombing attack in Jakarta itself. I'm not overly worried about it. There is a growing tendency in Indonesia for Islam to be able to control more of day-to-day life, and there is a growth of radical Islam. People are saying that these bombs were set off by an Islamic State group. Al-Qaeda is more or less passé now. This was an Islamic State group. My prediction is that it looked amateurish to me. I'll bet the Indonesian military and police will be looking back very, very quickly, and they'll start pulling people up. It's not as bad now as it was a few years ago.
Yes, I've been to Makassar. It's got a very small Christian population. It's a world away from Bali, places that Australians typically associate with Indonesia. So I can imagine that Christian population would be absolutely worried now with this attack. But yeah, hopefully they get to the bottom of it very quickly. Now let's get into this cabinet reshuffle. Christian Porter is going to be moved to the Industry, Science and Technology portfolio, previously held by Karen Andrews, and Linda Reynolds moved to Government Services and NDIS. Of course, that means that a number of other ministers are going to be impacted, including Peter Dutton and Michaelia Cash. Now, Jim, is the government in a state of crisis or chaos? Can it be a good thing to have this many ministers having to change their portfolios?
Well, I don't think we had a choice today. Like all Australians, or like some Australians, I watched it on TV. I wasn't part of it. No one asked my opinion. Rita, I can tell you. But I watched it on TV. I did not get the impression that this was a panic move. Yeah, sure, there is real impetus behind us because of what's been going on for the last 4 to 6 weeks. But putting Peter Dutton into defence is just one point in a whole range of movements, which I think were very, very good. Dutton is a tough guy, and that's what we need in defence. I make no aspersions on my colleague Linda Reynolds, but Peter Dutton is very, very experienced and might have more clout in cabinet than she did. Although she got $270 billion for defence over 10 years, and she did deployment after deployment. Melissa Price is going into cabinet. I think that's very good. She spends vast amounts of money.
But Senator Molan, can Linda Reynolds deal with her new portfolio if the last job had her, essentially the stress from it has seen her on medical leave? Is she equipped to take on NDIS? That's quite a significant task in itself.
Well, it is. And government services, Stu Robert has done a very, very good job in government services. And I think that we are just going to have to wait and see. I mean, I know Linda relatively well, and I was very surprised about the medical condition that brought her down. Now, let's see how she goes. Give her a chance. Let her get into it. Let's see what happens. But if I could,
Senator Jim Molan, thank you for your time.
Go
ahead.
Thanks, Freda. No, I was just going to say, the bottom line here is that the Defence Force has never been better for the wars that we have fought for the last 75 years, Rita. What we've got to do now is look at the Defence Force for what we may have to do in the future, and I have great hope that Peter Dutton will do that. It doesn't have the lethality, the sustainability, or the mass to defend us into the future. And the country itself, all of us, lacks self-reliance and lacks resilience. That's Peter's challenge, in my view.
It's an enormous challenge. Thank you for your time, Senator Jim Molan.
Thanks, Rita.